Welcome to the Soul Deep Podcast with Jessica Janty. Join me as we dive deep into raw, real, in-depth conversations about life, love, relationships, sexuality, spirituality, what it is we're really here for, and anything in between. I want this to feel like a safe space for anyone on a spiritual journey, trying to find answers in your truth by having open heart and open-minded conversations. And my hope for you as a listener is that you feel this is a safe space here, a place to hear things from a different perspective that may challenge you and your thinking in the best way possible, allowing you to give grace to how you've been raised or what you've been taught or told to believe. And perhaps you find your truth as I search for mine on this journey we call life. So grab your favorite drink, cozy on up to your couch or wherever you listen from, and join me for these soul deep conversations. Welcome back to the Soul Deep Podcast with Jessica Janty. Today, I have the privilege of having my own sister on this episode. So this is my blood sister, my middle sister. And in this episode, we talk about sisterhood, but not just blood-related sisterhood as a whole, the feminine relationships. So we get into, first of all, your siblings as being your best friends, the order that you were born into as a sibling. We get into the wounding that sisterhood can bring, the toxic sisterhood, but then we also get into the healed sisterhood. We talk a little bit about witchy wounds, and we also go into just friendships as a whole and in general. There are a couple books that my sister tells us about and talks through that would be really great for you as a listener if you're interested. And so I'm really happy to welcome my sister here. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, good morning. Hi, I'm so excited to have you here today. Thank you for being here. Yeah. I have my beautiful, wonderful sister here joining me today, and I'm so excited to get into this episode. But before we go too far, and I forgot to tell you this before we even started here, Janelle, but we're going to ground ourselves in here and we're just going to start with some breath. So I love to open all of my sessions with just a little breath to get into our space here and just for anybody just to take that pause. So only if you are not driving and you are listening here. If you are driving, you can still breathe, but just don't close your eyes. So inviting you wherever you are just to close down your eyes and settle into your space here while we take at least about 10 deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. So here we go, breathing in through our nose and out through the mouth. And just keeping the cycle of breath going with that inhale through the nose and that exhale out the mouth, and trying to make that exhale a little longer than the inhale. Just keep going with that breath. And as you're continuing to breathe here, the point of this slowing down and pausing is just to really find and notice in your body, maybe if there's anything your body is trying to tell you, or just allowing yourself to be present, to just be here. There's often so many things happening, things we have to go to, our work, our kids, just life in general, that we just get so caught up in everything that we forget just to take a couple moments just to pause and just to breathe. So just keeping with that inhale through the nose and that exhale out the mouth. And I'm not sure where we are at with the counting here, but we'll just do one more big deep inhale. And a big exhale. Then opening your eyes whenever you feel ready. Thank you for joining me. I love starting any session that I do with even breath work or coaching or anything, just to allow yourself to get into that space, to just let go of all the chatter that is happening, maybe stuff that you were doing before you dropped into the session, things that you have planned for later, and just being really present. So thanks for joining me in that. All right, awesome. So one thing that I want this podcast to feel like is just a lovely, warm, cozy conversation that we have just as great friends or whatever it is for you and I. It's actually blood-related siblings, but just to grab your nice cup of whatever it is that you enjoy. So I want to know, because I asked you to grab yourself something. So what are you drinking here this morning?
This morning, I am drinking coffee. That is my go-to warm beverage. This is a Peru San Fernando roasted by Wonder State Cafe, a little lovely roastery based here where I am living currently in Broco, Wisconsin.
Awesome. So cool. And you weren't always into coffee. I remember you were really into tea for a long time. What was that like in college that you decided to start drinking coffee? Because you worked at a coffee shop.
Yeah. College, I loved tea before that. And even, growing up working at kind of a restaurant, I didn't drink coffee other than, sometimes mixing it with a bunch of sugar and milk. But yeah, my freshman college roommate, Hillary, she brought a full-size coffee pot to our dorm room. And she is how I started drinking coffee. And yes, from there I started working in coffee shops on and off pretty much for the next like 10 years, I'd say. So yes, coffee has become a very big part of my life. And
Mm-hmm.
now I am, yes, definitely a coffee snob, but yeah, there's plenty of really wonderful coffee these days. So it's very easy to find good
Yeah.
things.
Do you put anything in your coffee or is it black?
Black, yeah.
Black. All right.
Sometimes if I'm having like a second cup in the afternoon, I've been doing decaf a little bit more often these days. If I'm doing a second pot in the afternoons, sometimes I'll put some milk in it just
Mm-hmm.
for a little something different.
Spice it up.
And I have been drinking, I mean, winter is a tea month for sure for me too. And I make a lot of teas that I drink, so that's
Mm,
fun too.
that's fun.
Yeah.
For me, I'm very traditional. I just do my dandy blend. I shouldn't say traditional because not a lot of people do dandy blend.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, but I don't do caffeine. So this tastes similar, I would think, in the bitterness of like a coffee.
And
But
dandy blend is just dandelion root, right?
correct. Yes, but I do put a little splash of, I have like an oat milk creamer that I use that I like. So I do
Mm-hmm.
put a little bit of that in here. So that's my warm. But yes, this during this winter, I mean, it is so cold here, you guys. For those of you that don't know, we're both in Wisconsin, and it is, I was just gonna pull up the weather because it is ridiculously cold. It has been it is -2 today is the actual temperature, and it feels like -18. So that's Fahrenheit for any of you who are listening in the Celsius. So it is very, very, very cold here. So, all right. Well, I invited my sister Janelle here. I was going to have both of my sisters on here because I have two sisters. And we were talking about, there's an app called Marco Polo, and so we Marco Polo each other. It's a video app where we can see each other, but it's like sending a message that you can just watch whenever works for you. So we'll send video messages back and forth to each other. And I was actually starting, what's it? What are you gonna say?
Snapchat that doesn't go away.
Yeah, that's a good
That's my
way.
best
Yeah.
description. Yeah.
Yes. And so I sent them my first episode to listen to, and I asked them for feedback, and they gave it to me. It turned into such a beautiful conversation that I really wanted to have it on this podcast. And so we were going to do this morning, and then our other sister got a new job. And so she wasn't able to join us here, but I decided that it would be really great still to have this conversation. And there was something else that came up in a polo with just you and I. And it really sparked a want for this type of conversation as well, which is sisterhood. So when I say sisterhood, it can mean more so when I say it, it is a overarching like term for maybe a family that you've created or has become a family that isn't necessarily blood related. So for me, when I say sisterhood, I talk a lot about, and I also just love promoting sisterhood now that I have gotten myself to this place where I have healed some sisterhood wounds, and we'll go into that a little bit too. But I've come to gather just amazing groups of women who have become like a sisterhood to me, like actual feeling like actual siblings, or even almost closer than siblings at times. That it's like a family that has become, it's like a chosen family instead of your blood family.
Right.
And
Deep
so,
feminine relationships.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely, yes. And so I wanted to dive deep into this conversation because I know there were things with you and sisterhood and wounding, and then I've had some sisterhood wounding and things. So I was wanting to maybe go back to start at the beginning a little bit. So obviously we are blood related siblings,
Mhm.
and growing up for me,
I'm
looking
4 years
back now.
younger, not to like
Yes, 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 which
age
is
you.
good. I am the oldest and the oldest of four. And then we have a brother that is 2 years younger than me. And then you come next. So you are 4 years younger than me. And then we have our sister Annette, who is 6 years younger than me. So, which isn't, I guess, a huge gap. But when you're growing up, at times it feels like there's a huge gap.
Mm.
And so, growing up, I would say that your siblings, and you can let me know if you agree or disagree, are like your first friends. They really are, because you're in the house, and I mean we did have neighbors growing up,
Mhm.
but we also then moved away into a house where we didn't have a lot of neighbors, and but then at that time we had friends. But I really think your siblings are your first friends.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah, you learn with those relationships and you grow up with that.
I think it's your first real indicator of that, like what you were talking about, close friendships, but also in the same way, like conflict. And I think that that's the biggest, I think, difference
Yes.
about, sibling relationships where you feel like you do, I don't know, for my experience anyways, like it's easier to get into conflict with your siblings than it is
Yes.
with a friend. But I feel like siblings just allow you to learn how to experience conflict and deep intimacy both,
Mm, yeah,
which
that's really great.
obviously has room for, you know, complications or struggles. But
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is that like beginning intro to deep relationships.
Yeah. And for me, so being the oldest, I had, and you can let me know your take on this too and when I'm done with mine, but being the oldest and now coming at it from the lens that I'm in now. And actually, I would say it was probably a good like 10 years ago when I really, really missed like having that sibling relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So going from I had really good friends, and I had a boyfriend when I was in high school. And so I started getting to this point where I didn't really want to hang out with my siblings anymore. And I'm sure that happens to a majority of people. It's like your siblings become this like naggy, annoying, like, oh my gosh, they want to play with my stuff and they want to play with my friends when they're over. And I just wanted to hang out with my friends. And but then as I left the home, I didn't really realize the the beauty in a sibling relationship until I left home. And then even at that, I think because I got married young, and I was 21 when I got married. And so you guys were still in high school,
Yeah.
and I didn't really realize the friendship that I could have, or the understanding that that my siblings could be my friends if I just had chosen that. And I didn't. And so I got a little bit older, and then you guys moved away, and you moved to Nashville, and then Annette went to mission school, and then they went to Canada. And so I remember having this moment being like seeing other people growing with their siblings and how their sibling relationships turned around and they were really good friends with their siblings. And then I missed that. And I was like, man, I didn't know what I had until it was gone. I didn't realize how much I would miss you guys or how much I really loved hanging out with you guys until you were across the country.
Mm.
And so that for me then was hard. Like, why didn't I take that time with them? Why didn't I spend that time with them? Why didn't I get to know them as people before we became adults? And so that's something that I try to teach my kids too. Like, enjoy what you have here in this house, and are 17 and 15. So they're kind of at this age where they don't appreciate each other. And I really wish that they would, because I know what they're going to miss out on when they go away.
Mhm. Well, I feel like that's an interesting point too, because there's a version of yourself when you're a kid, and then as you become a teenager, you I feel like that's a really big blossoming point for friendships and intimate relationships, in that you really are figuring out who you are and who you want to spend your time with. And I
Mhm.
feel like that's the biggest catch of that time. It's like, I don't have to spend the time with
Mhm.
these people that I used to. So who do I actually want to spend my time
Mhm.
with?
Yeah.
And I think that there is sometimes, like you were talking about, a push to kind of like spend time with your friends or your boyfriends or these other relationships that you're developing. So it is easier to kind of realize that you do have intimate relationships with these other people that are valuable just in a different way.
Mhm.
Um, but it's interesting, and if we have a podcast with Annette, her and I were 2 years apart, so we were kind of lumped together a lot growing up. So when we hit that teenager phase, that was kind of when I would say, I mean, we've always been close just by proximity, but we actually developed and fell into more of a relationship as a friendship
Mhm.
and a sister experience, because we were, similar to your kids right now, where you're like driving each other places. And
Yeah.
because we were going to the same school and we were both, 2 years apart, we were both in, you know, the drama club together. And there were different things that
Mhm.
we naturally kind of started doing that were aligned with our friends as well. So there
Mhm.
was a lot of overlap that we had that I think did deepen our relationship in a different way other than just being sisters. Um, that yes, I think that we didn't necessarily experience with you, because at that point
Mhm.
you
I went
were
to a
a
different high
wife and a
school.
mother, and
Yeah.
yes, yeah, right. But it is interesting to kind of feel like, I imagine that you do feel some like regret for not taking advantage of the time. However, like, we were still like kids when you were
Mhm.
home, and that like maturity and that level of connectedness, I feel like maybe couldn't have happened
Yeah.
at that time. So,
Mhm.
you know,
I agree. I think once you get into high school, that maturity, that it really like steps up, because I noticed that with my kids, that that's when they started becoming closer. And it probably too also had to do with the fact that Aubrey started driving.
mhm,
But with Atticus, it just became this, like, he was always this annoying brother that was naggy and all of that, which I remember as being the oldest as well. But then once he started getting into high school, and I think maturing a little bit more and being around other kids that are a little more mature, then it just became like they just are naturally now a little closer than they were prior to him starting high school. So it is interesting how that like all comes around.
mhm.
But yeah. And you guys also, I mean, you were in a real small school. So, your friends were probably this similar friends, and you were all kind of close together. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's different too. Where Ryan and I, that's Ryan is my brother, or our brother, we went to a public school. You guys went to a private school. So we went to a public high school, which had a lot of kids. So I hardly saw him in high school at all. Like, we had a locker kind of similar to each other, and I would drive him to and from. But other than that, I didn't have lunch with him. I didn't have any classes with him. So I didn't see him throughout the day at all. And so it's just very different how you guys then went to a private high school. So you guys saw, but it was small, So you guys
Yeah.
saw each other more. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think because of our age difference, we didn't have like classes together ever,
Oh, okay.
but yes, we were in like similar after school things and um yeah, because of the fact that it was a very small school, we would see each other all the time too.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So getting into the whole sisterhood outside then of your blood related siblings.
Mm,
So there was a piece that you touched on. Oh, I think we've just been talking about this because for me, I think there was so also when I put sisterhood and overarching sisterhood, that can also mean because there's sisterhood wounds, which can deal with any type of feminine wounding that you have, whether it's from maybe your mother or grandmother or siblings or friends or anything growing up as well as, into adult relationships. And so for myself, I didn't realize the sisterhood wounding that I had until I really started on this like healing journey that I've been on for the last 2 years. And now when I look back at it, I can see how there's so much jealousy and women trying to one up each other. And because I feel like we were brought up this way where you have to compete for XYZ. Like, I want this, so I have to compete for it because she might get it if I don't
yeah.
show up this way or if I don't prove myself. And so
Mm,
I think there became this wounding in the sisterhood, in womanhood in general, just building that up. I think throughout my life, at least I felt it, that I always felt like there was always jealousy. There was always, I don't know, this need to be the top dog type person.
mm,
And I've really learned over the last 2 years that there's room for everyone. There's
mm,
literally room for everyone. Your gifts and my gifts, we could be doing the same thing, standing side by side next to each other. And the people that need you are going to find you, and the people that need me are going to find me.
mm,
And so it's healing this sisterhood wound. It's healing this feminine, not energy, but
mm.
just this feminine, this like
The
love that we
wave
have for each
of the feminine. Yeah.
other. Yes.
And I don't want to like cut you off or anything,
Oh,
but
go
I
ahead.
was reading something recently about this exact thing, how, there's been all of these advancements in what women can do in society and culture and our, you know, voting rights and public freedoms have increased dramatically. And there's still so much insecurity in women
Mm-hmm.
because we interjected all of this like freedom and liberation into a patriarchal society. So
Mm-hmm.
we are trying to mirror this way that isn't really ours naturally, and we've dove into this patriarchal world of competitiveness, of, limited mindset mentality. And that is not, I feel like, the way of the feminine, which is deeply communal and deeply
Mm-hmm.
relational.
Yeah.
And not to say that, men can't be relationship and, women can't be competitive. Like these, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
there's, but I've, yeah, it's just such an interesting thing to think about how women, how we do think about feminine relationships or feminine experiences that we've had that have felt judgy or insecure or any of these things like you were talking about that are generally framed in a mindset of trying to succeed, trying to win,
Mm-hmm.
where that's not the way of a woman.
Yeah. Yes. And it's so interesting when you're talking about the communal piece as well, because if you look back, it's like there were villages and they were all together, and the women literally were in tents together, making food, doing life together.
Mhm.
And that's just how it was. There was no, I can't speak to the fact that there was no jealousy or anything like that
Oh,
back then
sure. Yeah.
because they're probably, like we're
Mm.
human. but they just did life together. That's just how it was. And now we've come into this like modern age here where we are so separated from these like women, feminine relationships, this communal relationships that we are really deeply meant to have. And so I think there's this longing, or there has been at least inside of me. And so part of my story that I haven't shared yet on this podcast is that I had this beautiful group of friends that we literally would, it was very similar to that, where we would do life together. We were at one of each other's houses all the time throughout the week, a good chunk of the week. I would say probably at least 3 of the 5 nights during the week. And then on weekends, we would also do life together. So it's like, okay, we're going over to so and so's today, and all our kids, and sometimes our spouses would join, sometimes it was just us women, but we would all be together and hanging out and just doing life. And if you couldn't pick up your kids, you had something going on, you'd just call me up and I'd go grab your kids and you'd grab my kids, or, all of it was just a really beautiful way of life. And I loved it. And then things happened and life happened and we went different directions. And it was a really, really hard time in my life. And this was also part of the time when my husband and I were separated. And so I literally was left with these friends had all gone and he was gone. And so then I was kind of by my lonesome. And I think this is where we were talking the other day, or having these polos about just how sometimes you need that. I don't want to say abandonment because I don't know that you necessarily need abandonment, but you needed that. It was almost like God was being like, you need this time for yourself to find yourself and to figure yourself out, because you were relying so much. Like I almost went so much into this sisterhood, so much into these women, that I think God was like, you need to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet and how to do your life yourself and what you want and what you need to be best for your husband. Because there were definitely shadow sides to that group and the doing life together. I mean, we were drinking like almost every night. It revolved around having a bottle of wine or having, drinks. And our kids would be off playing, but we'd be off doing our own thing too. So it wasn't like we were really, and we would do stuff with the kids at times too, but I think it became a little more toxic than it needed to be. And I think I needed to rein myself in, and just knowing, because we come from families of addiction and things like that, that once I stepped out of that, I was really like, wow, I'm really grateful. Even though this hurts so much right now, I'm super grateful that it happened, because I could have completely gone down that road of addiction if I would have kept up with that lifestyle that I was doing. But to kind of like bring it back full circle here, it's just the sisterhood wounding and then stepping out of that and feeling the hurt, because there was a lot of hurt that went on when our sisterhood broke up. And it was really hard for me to lean back into sisterhood, to lean into you guys as my actual blood siblings, to lean into any other feminine friendship, I guess, because I felt very, very hurt and very, I don't know what the other word for it, it was just hurt. And so I feel like there can be a lot that goes into sisterhood, and there can be a lot of hurt that goes into it as well. So it's really trying to heal that so that you can have beautiful relationships, that you can open your heart up to the relationships that you're really meant to have, and that are good for your soul, that are feeding your soul, instead of relationships that are tearing you down. Yeah, I just went off on a tangent there, but
Oh no. And I feel like going off of that too, it's really good and wonderful to realize the importance of those relationships in a moment of time. And I feel like this is one of those things that's easy to look past when you have a relationship that goes south, or that something, happens and it's damaged, and you go your separate ways like you did with your friends. It doesn't mean that that relationship didn't hold value at that time in your life.
Absolutely.
And I think that, it is easy to try to put all of our energy and commitment into certain relationships, hoping that they will fulfill everything for us. And obviously, as
Mm-hmm.
humans, like we need more than one. We need to have relationships, and we can't count on one person to be everything for us,
Mm-hmm.
including what we need for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, when I look back on my experience with women, I had some close friends in high school, and, it's hard to gauge on what a relationship is and isn't when you don't have that as much of a reference point. So I think that there was a certain relationship in particular that I had that was very toxic and it wasn't healthy. And I was a pretty shy um, teenager. I wasn't like super outgoing, but I was very confident in who I was. But at the same time, I, you know, I didn't think that I was like popular with the boys, and I wasn't outgoing, and I didn't know how to, flirt or any of those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I had a friend who was very good at those things, so it was very easy for her to take me under her wing, and I would always have a place because I was next to her. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like it was good to have that friendship in that period of my life. However, as I got older, I realized like this is actually not a healthy relationship for me to be constantly behind, constantly in the shadow of this other person. And yeah, shortly after I got married, actually, I realized, you know what, I can't continue this relationship, even though it feels like one that I have to or that I should
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
continue because it has been there for so long.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it was ready for me to let go of it. And I had to do that in a very literal way. And looking back on that, I'm so grateful for that relationship in that time of my life. And I don't regret it, even though there are things that I probably could have done differently. And I also don't regret ending it because it was something that I needed to do to learn and grow in who I was and who I could be with other people. And I didn't need her to be my voice. And that was a big thing for me to realize. But after having that experience, it was hard for me to dive in and find who I wanted to spend my time with in like female relationship. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think, there were some natural friendships I had, over my like young adulthood, college roommates and friends that I did have from high school that I, rekindled during college. And all of these relationships were super important in different ways. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it is each one was a different thing, and that can be beautiful too. But it wasn't until actually I had my daughter that I found a group of women, and it wasn't a group that was particularly for children or anything. Actually, to this day, half of us have kids and half of us don't by choice. And and over the next, I don't know, yeah, 10 years, I've been cultivating this relationship of women, and it has been the most valuable thing that I have had in my adulthood, other than my relationship with my husband, which is, and my kids, I guess. I have a lot of really wonderful relationships, but as
I
far
know.
as,
Yeah.
yeah, as far as women are concerned,
Mm-hmm.
it is now my like base level to, not that I want to like judge other relationships
Mm-hmm.
by these, but I know what's healthy now in
Mm-hmm.
a feminine relationship. I know
Mm-hmm.
that boundaries are okay, and I know that you can love and respect somebody while also having a different opinion that they do. And you know we have all gone through different phases and stages of our lives together, and most of them are slightly older than me, which is also really, I think, a wonderful thing for a woman to have relationships with women who are older, so you can see and experience women go through different things than you
Mm-hmm.
are. And also, yeah, there's a certain level of respect, and also, they are going before me and I can learn from them
Mhm.
and their wisdom.
Yeah. I love that.
But that's not to say that we haven't had there have been different people who have had, conflicts within this group. There's six of us, and there have been different seasons. And I think that this past year was a really challenging year for me personally. And because I have moved away from them, I met this group of women in Nashville, and as of right now, most of them are still in Nashville, and I am not there. There's another one who moved a little farther away as well. But there was a period of time this summer where I realized like I needed to step away from the group relationship as a whole because I had to go through some personal things on my own. And like you were saying, Jessica, it was an experience that I had to do on my own. And I couldn't, even though I wanted to rely on someone else, I
Mhm.
knew that I couldn't. And there were certain things, yes, that I also believe that God put in my life and my experience where I had to, not that I severed my relationship with them, but I took a step back because I felt some hurt, some like distance that we naturally have because we're farther apart now. But I needed to take that time to be on my own again and to experience what I was experiencing by myself. And, just this last month, I kind of rejoined the relationship with them, and it was wonderful. I was able to communicate what I needed to honestly, and they all understood that I had to take some time, and I was, welcomed back with open arms. And I was, yeah, it's lovely to have relationships like that that can ebb and flow and go through seasons of life with you.
I love that. I love there's so many like good points you put in there.
Yeah, I rambled. I'm sorry.
No, I loved all of it because when you were talking about your relationship from early on in high school, it brought me back because I had a friend that I mean, we were best friends from when I was in preschool or kindergarten all the way until I don't know when that relationship ended. I had kids already, but it just like our lives had gone in different directions and there was lots of things that had happened and there was really big things that had happened to sever. We had like this group of there was four of us and we all basically were friends since we were kindergarten. One of the girls came on in fourth grade because she started with us in fourth grade, but still to this day I am friends with two of them. And but the one of them, we were just having this conversation the other day, like, man, I wonder how she's doing and what's going on with her. And I had reached out to her because like for you, where the relationship had ended because it was toxic to your life. And I had realized that for myself, that it would just wasn't it wasn't fueling my soul. It was actually bringing me down. And even my husband would say something like, every time you talk on the phone with her, it's like your energy is low. And it's just like you bring that conversation, that heaviness of that conversation or anything from that conversation, and it like spews out into our family,
Mm.
which I didn't even realize that it was doing that. And so it really took him like saying that to me for me to realize, you know what, you're right. This isn't healthy for me. And I think I had felt it inside of myself, but I didn't want to acknowledge it because it was such a long friendship
Yeah.
that I felt like I had to keep it. I
Mhm.
felt like it had to be there, even though it wasn't serving me. I felt like I had to keep it. And I am the one who ended up saying something to her. And then we stopped speaking after that and have maybe said we've had some messages here and there just like rekindling because we've seen each other walking past because we're still in the same town.
Mhm.
But looking back and just listening to you talk, like it was hard for me to let it go, but now looking back, it was for a season in my life and it was there to teach me lessons,
Mhm.
and it's okay that it's not there any longer. Even though there are times where I still think like, oh, should I reach back out? Should we try to rekindle that friendship? Should we do it again? But it's like I know where I'm at now, and I couldn't have that friendship here now. Like it couldn't come with me. It just couldn't. And unless there was changes, unless there were things and that person wanted to meet me where I was at now, then maybe. But that was for a season. That was for a season of my life. It was there for a reason. But now I'm in this season, and that couldn't go with me. And I realized that with that group of girls that I had as well, is like that I needed to grow. I needed to move myself in this direction. I needed other things in life. My soul's mission is to do things at a higher level, is not to be in these, let's, have drinks every single night and talk about all the gossip. Like, no, let's dive into like these real deep, hence this like podcast here, these real deep, good conversations. And those relationships couldn't come with me to where I am now. It was very surfacey. And so these relationships that I am building now are these really deep, where we can have deep conversations like this, where we can talk about anything and everything without judgment. Like, what do you think about this? Like, we can talk about, do you believe there's a hell or not? Do you believe in God? Do you, just anything, anything that you could think of. We just can dive into these conversations. And those are the relationships that I want to have. And that's why I love being able to have conversations with you guys now as well. You guys being my sisters, my actual blood sisters, because I love that relationship, though we've been with each other for forever, our relationship is developing into this where we can have deeper conversations with each other. And I just love that we all are along for this ride, that we all are into wanting to have these deeper conversations and talking about these things that really matter, instead of just like, hey, how's it going today? What's the weather? That kind of stuff. So
Eric and I have been talking a little bit about that and just really making relationships here too. And we've been back in Wisconsin for 4 years, which is really crazy to think it's been that long.
Yeah.
The pandemic did weird things to time.
Yes, right.
But there are a few relationships we've had here, and we came to the realization that there are relationships and people who are plateaued, and there are people moving up. And it is easy, and I don't want to like criticize Wisconsin because I love Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I'm from Wisconsin, and it is a beautiful place, but it feels at times a place of plateau. And there's a beauty in having rhythm, and there is a truth to finding community and stability that I can't ignore. And part of the reason we moved back here for, and I value the time that we have had here to do that, but it is not moving forward. It's not going up. It's not, it's like, it's surface level plateau typically. And that's not to say that I haven't found, wonderful connections in this community. I definitely have, but it's easy to stumble into relationships that are comfortable and safe and not challenging. And I think that there's a lot of people who find that is all you need. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe for those people, but there is something to be said of having people that you can ask real questions and you can go deep places. And that is learning. That is continuing to expand you and your mind and what you are doing here on this earth, rather than, going and getting a drink every night.
Yeah. Yeah, your soul's purpose. Like, why are you here?
Right.
What are you here for? Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, because when you think about Wisconsin, what do you think about? You think about beer and
Beer
cheese.
and cheese.
Beer and cheese. And those are not high vibration foods in any sense. So while I love a good cheese, I absolutely love a good cheese. I could totally do without the beer. But we are known for our drinking. Our cities are known for being big drinking cities. We've got Madison as like one of the biggest drinking campuses in the US. And then we've got Milwaukee, which is like the capital drinking city.
Uh-huh.
Like we've got that going for us here in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think it is hard because we do have some really great friends around here, but it's that tendency to want to drink, or when we get together, we have to drink.
Mhm.
And a little while back, well, it's probably been 2 years almost. 2 years in January when Mike went to Texas
Mhm.
for his TBI.
Mhm.
And when she just said, stop drinking beer,
Mhm.
like it's really damaging. It's so inflammatory to your body. Like, have something else. If you want to have a drink, have something else, but don't drink beer. And so he stopped drinking beer about 2 years ago. And at first, his friends were like, what? What are you doing? Are you still gonna, like, can you still have fun? Or like, it was one of those kind of questions, like, well, what are you gonna do? Like, we still hang out? And he's like, yeah, like I can still hang out. I'm just not gonna drink beer. Like,
Yeah.
it's fine. I still want to be with you guys and hang out with you guys. I just don't want to be drinking beer. But then he slowly started realizing, okay, whenever we get together, we drink, and then it's conversations that are just,
That's it.
yeah.
Mhm.
So he has had some conversations with those guys. Like, I want to have like good, deep conversations. I want to have good, yeah, meaningful relationships. Like, I don't want it just to be us sitting here drinking, watching somebody else play sports all night. Like, I want to be the ones playing sports. I want to be the ones doing things instead of sitting here watching these people live their dreams. Like, I want to live my dreams, and I want you guys to be part of that. And so there were some hard conversations that he had, but it's turned out really great. And they were all on board. And so, yes, they still do get together and drink and things, but they also are able to have good conversations as well, which I think is so beautiful, and something that you spoke to about having those boundaries and setting those boundaries with your friends and knowing what you want and what you need in a friendship now that you are an adult.
Mhm.
And so it's interesting just looking back and thinking about friendships that I've had along the way and how they are not here any longer, and that's okay. But it really took me a long time to get to that point to say, it's okay that they're not here anymore. It's okay that that friendship isn't here anymore,
It's
because
okay.
that leaves room for new friendships. It leaves
Mhm.
room for just to be open to the possibilities. And that's where I've come into all these beautiful friendships now that I have. And a lot of them are out of state. A lot of them are from different retreats that I've met people at and things. But to be able to do something like this where we can Zoom and we can see each other while we're talking, or Marco Polo, I use that a lot now too, that app on your phone. So you can actually see the faces and have this friendship, even if it is from a distance, but being able to have these deep conversations with people.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
We were going to there's a book that you had
Ooh.
mentioned the other day in that polo that we were doing. And so I wanted you to speak a little bit about that book because I haven't read it yet, but I know that you've read it and we're talking about
Yeah,
it.
well, I'm halfway through reading it and it's really great. So I haven't finished it, so I can't
Yeah.
speak to the
Speak
whole
all of
book,
it. Yeah.
but I am currently reading, I guess this last year I I met some people who were like really challenged me to start reading more. And I like reading, but it had been a while since I was reading a lot, you know?
Mhm.
But last year I like challenged myself to read I think 20 books, maybe
Nice.
25 books. I don't know. I met the goal and I
Yay.
yeah, I think I read 24 books last year. But it's just, and I tried to read a variety of things. I really like memoir and nonfiction, and I like reading fiction and stuff too, but I tried to really mix up what I read. I read Mirrors in the Earth by Asia
Yeah,
Suler,
you were
which
talking about that one.
I highly recommend. And this was from my list last year that I didn't get around to, but I am starting the year with it. It's called If Women Rose Rooted
Mhm.
by Sharon Blackie. And it is a lovely uh, story that's kind of it basically goes through well, she speaks from the reference point of like Celtic tradition and mysticism a little bit, but also is going through her life in like the woman's journey. Um, and at the beginning, she talked a little bit about the hero's journey. The I think that's Joseph Campbell that
I don't know.
developed that. I might be wrong, so don't quote me on that. But it's been part of books and movies and television for, generations. This idea of the hero's journey, a man going out from his tribe or his town and having an adventure and coming back and sharing the knowledge with
Mm.
his community. And and Sharon Blackie is talking about how that is great, but women, our journey looks different than that. And so she is talking about the heroine's journey in this book. And one of the initial steps is to go into this place of darkness, like we were talking about earlier,
Mm.
doing these things that we have to do on our own, going through these times where you cannot have anyone else propping you up or supporting you. You have to do it and come out the other side with
Mhm.
your own wisdom and your own knowledge. And it's really, really been beautiful to read, because every step of the way so far, I'm like, yep, yep, yep. And obviously I haven't done my whole journey, but it's really beautiful to look at it as a point of reference for experiences, these things that I didn't know how to describe, a couple months ago. The experience that I had this summer and fall where I had to do this time by myself and I couldn't explain why, but
Mhm.
it felt like something I needed to do. And it felt selfish almost for letting go of people and things. But now with this like frame of reference of and it's in her chapter that she talks about it as like a cave going into the earth.
Mhm. Mhm.
And in Celtic folklore, often these caves are a connection between the other world, and she calls it the cauldron of transformation. And it's a little witchy, but that's also kind of beautiful. And even the term, I was talking to a friend, and this was actually last year, coming uh, to head with the term witch and witchy, and how,
It's
it's
such a
not a,
negative connotation. It's so, yeah.
yeah, yeah, right. It doesn't have to be a scary thing. There's like so much wisdom,
Mhm.
and throughout history, it's been a struggle sharing that wisdom,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be a negative thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Mm.
yes, perhaps I'll update you on the rest
Yeah,
as I continue.
absolutely.
But
Well, I
for
do
sure.
want to, I put it on my list here, I wrote it down,
Hmm.
because I do want to read that as well, because I think there is something to that, because obviously you did it yourself. I had that dark period where I literally was, by myself being like, God, why the heck would you bring me here? And it wasn't a chosen one for me though.
Hmm.
For me, excuse me, for me, it was like it was God being like, okay, you didn't do it
Forced.
yourself.
Get
You
in
didn't
there.
listen. You didn't listen to me. There
Yeah.
probably was things that I missed. Like you didn't listen to me. So I'm giving it to you, whether you like it or not, because you need to go through this period to get to the other side. And I don't think I would have picked that for myself. I, at the time, wasn't strong enough for that.
Hmm.
Now I could see myself being like, okay, I need to take that time. I need to take that time for myself. But at that time, I couldn't do it myself. Someone literally had to push me. Like I literally got that push. Like, okay, you are here. You are here by yourself and you need to figure it out. And
Hmm.
so, and it's hard. It can be really hard to do that and to go into the depths and into the dark, into the cave
Hmm.
to find yourself. But really, I think when you come out of that cave, when you really truly find yourself, like it's so beautiful. And it still is a work in progress. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
I went into this cave and I had, and now everything is, sunshine and rainbows. Like there's
Right.
still this journey of healing and growing and, but I also know that it had to happen and it was
Right.
beautiful and
The the cave portion, going into the cave, is chapter 4 out of 10. So this
Mm.
is not like the end of the journey. This is at
Yeah.
this is at the
Yes.
start. This is how you get going.
Yes. Mm.
And I love uh that idea too.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Mm. Awesome. Well, I was gonna also get into like what you're doing, where you're at, all of that kind of stuff, if you want to dive into that at all, because I know you had this push from early on to go to school, to go to college because you were the smart one, you were the smart one of the family. And I remember mom and dad wanting you to like really go to college and to get
I
that,
was gonna be the doctor.
degree.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about like your journey and where you are
hmm
at now.
That's interesting. And it definitely goes back a bit farther. Yeah, I think that I did grow up. I'm a middle child, so there's
Mhm.
certain different perspectives that I have that
Mhm.
are different than yours being the first child.
Mhm.
Um, but there was always this creating peace and not rocking the boat and
Mm.
providing stability to my spot in the lineup. And I think that
Mhm.
that's a middle kid thing, maybe a little bit. But so there was this push to do something bigger, right? To go beyond, I think, and to do something bigger and better, right?
Mhm.
And I did gravitate toward the medical field, and I was very interested in science and stuff. So it just seemed natural for me to become a doctor, right?
Mhm.
And I don't really know when that idea was kind of planted in there, but I went to college and that's what I was going to try to do. And then college was really difficult. And I think that I didn't have to work hard in high school and I didn't have to study. I was just like, things came to me,
Mhm.
which I don't know if that's an advantage or a disadvantage because I didn't have to apply myself very hard and I didn't have to, study for hours and hours.
Mhm.
So when I went to college, I didn't have that work uh, ethic
Yeah, you probably didn't know
and
how to study.
I
Yeah.
floundered. I failed chemistry, not once, but like 3 times,
I
which
don't
is
think I knew
embarrassing to
that.
say. Oh, yeah. Like, I had to take chemistry like basically 1 and 2. There was like 103 and
Mm,
104,
sure.
and I failed them both. So I had to retake them both.
Yeah.
And I struggled. I struggled so much. And mom and dad did help me with college a little bit, but I had to pay for a lot of it myself. So that was like I was trying to balance
Mm,
not being very good and
mm.
making sure that I was making money. So I wasn't probably studying as much as I could have. And
Which was
it
probably
was,
hard because if you grew up always being good at
mhm.
school and not having to work hard, that probably was really frustrating.
It was such a shock for me. And yeah, I was really, really discouraged. So I think it wasn't until I switched majors a couple of times because I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to be a doctor. Maybe I'll be a physical therapist. I think I was pre-PT for a little while, um, or no, pre-PA, was
Mm,
physician's
yeah.
assistant.
Mhm.
And then I was like, well, what if I become a physical therapist? I was very interested in that. And that's what I ended up coming out with. But I guess my junior year, I was at a point of like complete loss. I was not enjoying myself. It was just such a struggle. And I realized like, I don't want to come out of this with something I'm not happy and proud of.
Mm,
So
mhm.
my like second semester of my junior year, I switched my major to sociology, which was kind of a really a very strange 180. I had taken a sociology class in like a college level class in high school, and that was my only experience with it, but I thought it
Mhm.
was really interesting and I loved it. It was so fascinating. So I spent I had to take an extra semester because I switched my major late and I had to cram in a ton of classes, but I had so much fascination and joy in the learning that it was a renewed excitement
Mm,
about
mhm.
college in general. And sociology is like the study of people and the study of people groups and how people interact. And it was just fascinating to me. So I came out of college with this like pre-physical therapy, but also sociology, but also a minor in biology because I had taken so many biology classes by that time anyway. And then also in that senior year, I started taking English classes because I was really interested. And I was like, I might as well do something that I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that brought me so much joy, just, diving into that kind of aspect of learning again. So I also had a minor in English, but I didn't do anything with any of that for a long period of time. I went and shadowed. We moved to Chicago and then shortly after moved to Nashville. My husband is a musician, so he was pursuing music there. And I applied to a couple of schools. There wasn't anything super close at the time for physical therapy. Nashville didn't have a program at the time, which is crazy. So I was applying to Bowling Green and a couple other spots. And I got a seat in the Bowling Green program, but they decided they were going to wait a year to start the program. So they had enough people. It was like the first year the program was going to start. So they're like, okay, you have a spot, but we're not starting for another year. And in that period of that year, I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. This
Mm.
isn't what I want to do with my life. And I came to the realization that I was doing it for other people and not for myself.
Mm.
And I had started working in coffee shops and started managing and had enough, people experience that was easy for me to do, despite the fact that it's not very fun managing people. Or some
Mm.
people
Yeah.
really, really love it, but it's very hard. It's very emotionally draining. But I did that for a long period of time because it was stable. And then when we had our second child, I stopped working so that I could be home with our kids. And that was a really wonderful period of time for me to realize that I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Mm.
And there was a period of time when I was interested in starting a farm, which was very, very left field from what I had gone to school for or anything like that. But I had this vision that we would create this place where my husband could make music and have a studio where people could come and work, and I would grow food and have a space where people could come and write and record with him. And this dream of January Farms developed.
Mm.
Actually, 2012 is the first time I laid it to paper,
Mm.
which is
Amazing.
a really long
That's
time ago to me.
crazy.
I
Yeah.
know. But, life happens, and uh, we I started different iterations of January Farms. I did some gardening classes when we were in Nashville. I taught people how to can and preserve things, you know, and moving back here was kind of for me. We moved to Nashville for Eric, and then our time felt done there. The city had changed a lot. It's a lovely city to visit, but we no longer wanted to live there, and we didn't really want to raise our kids there.
Mhm.
Um, we weren't living in a great school district, which made it very hard to want to send them to school, and we couldn't afford the expensive Montessori.
Mhm.
So we moved back to Wisconsin so that I could start a farm. And
Mm.
then the pandemic happened and we didn't find land. So I started using other people's land, and it was a really great experience. I did the farmers market for 3 years. I keep bees, which is
Yeah.
something I didn't even talk about, which is a huge part of my
Yeah.
life. But I think when I started staying home that same year that Phoenix was born, I started keeping bees. And that was a really, really wonderful experience and a very feminine experience, I feel like, to me, but a very connective. It's like a relationship. Um, so I knew that that was something that I wanted to add to the mix too. So when we moved here, I kept my bees at your house for a little while when we were
Yeah.
in between.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was fun.
We loved it. That
Um,
has actually kind of been like a thought in the back of our minds for a while. Like, okay, we had Janelle's bees here. Like, we could probably do this.
uh-huh.
We
I
haven't done
mean,
it.
I would be happy to help you
Yeah.
start back up. But I grew for the farmer's market for 3 years, and I did vegetables the first year, and then I switched to doing herbs and flowers and honey. And I started doing flowers mostly because somebody was like, "Oh, your flowers are beautiful. You should do that." And so I started doing that. It's like I've never learned anything. That it's easy for me to do something because someone else tells me that I should. So I started growing flowers and making bouquets and arrangements, which were beautiful. And I'm good at it. I can't say that I'm not good at it. I'm very
Mhm.
proud that I'm good at it. However, I am not passionate about flowers.
Mhm.
And some people really, really are.
Mhm.
And I think it is easy to do something that you're not passionate about if it brings enough money in, but it
Mhm.
wasn't bringing much money in. So it would have been something that I would have had to really push at and work really hard at to become monetarily successful. But without the passion, I didn't have the drive to do that.
Yeah.
So we were given kind of a big opportunity to move through my husband's work. So this in 2023, we were going to move. So I kind of let go of January Farms, the iteration that it was while it was here, which
Mhm.
was primarily growing for farmers market and restaurants and stuff like that. So it kind of veered off the path of what I wanted it to be. And I think in stopping doing it this last year and then not moving, there was kind of a shift in the plans for my husband's work, and basically the whole move got put on hold for a year. And it really, really made me have to sit and reflect, like, okay, is this something you want to pick back up again? Something
Yeah.
you want to keep doing or not? And I've been writing forever as a means of release and enjoyment.
Yeah.
And I decided when we were going to move that I would start investing in writing more because I would need
Mm.
to be home
Mhm.
and I probably wouldn't get a job right away. So I was going to really dive into writing. And then we didn't move. And then I
Mhm.
was like, why? I should just start writing.
Yeah.
There's no reason that I shouldn't do that, even though we didn't make our grand move. So yeah, this past year I started writing, and I have a substack called January Journal, and that is where I'm primarily writing, and I'm submitting to publication and trying to do that, but it's a
Mhm.
it's a
I
it's a
love that.
journey. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I am. Mhm.
I love that. I love your story because there's pieces that I didn't even know in there.
Mm.
So I love that. But I also love, I just feel like there's like a theme and I've picked it up for myself as well, but like doing it for others.
Mm.
Like this
Mhm.
piece of, feeling like you had to be XYZ or you had to go to college right away because you were the smart one, and you had to do this to make, people happy or proud or, whatever that was. And I think I got caught up in a lot of that too. And for me, and I don't know if this just comes from our family, but that you did make mention of like that peacemaker, that you felt like you had to be the peacemaker in the home, because I felt similar to that at times too, like where I had to keep the peace and I had to do exactly what everyone needed so that everything would just be like this even keel, so I would do exactly what my parents said or exactly what my teacher said or exactly what the pastor said. And so I don't even know where I got the idea of becoming a nurse. Like I knew grandma was a CNA, and so I think that was like part of it. I saw her, but just that whole piece of like, well, why did I become this and why did I do that? Was it because someone else told me to do it, or was I really passionate about it? Like I was good at it. I was good at my job. I was really good ICU nurse.
Mhm.
But then I started being unhappy there. And then two other ladies that I knew had gone to a different department. So they're like, you should come over here. So then I was like, okay, I should go over there.
Mhm.
And so I did that. And then ever since then, it like that wasn't my passion. That wasn't where I wanted to be. And so I think I got caught up also in the you have to do this because this person said you should, or maybe it would be better because they're telling me it would be better. And I never really took the time for myself to find out what I truly wanted or sit with myself like, who am I? And what do I want? And what do I need? Which sometimes that sounds like selfish when you say I, but really, if you think about it, like you are the designer of your life. Obviously, you're co-creating with God, but like you ultimately get to choose. We have free will. We have
It
that.
is your life,
It
no one
is.
else's.
It is. And so, as hard as it is to be like, don't listen to everybody else, truly, don't listen to everybody else. Like it is your life. You have to be the one who lives it day in and day out. Like someone can tell you what they think you should do, but they're not the one that has to live it. Like you are. You know what you're passionate about, what you're designed here to do and to be, but you have to get quiet enough with yourself, I think. And that's where those dark times come in, those
Yes.
places where you have to go into the cave to figure out where am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to be doing? Who am I truly? And
Mhm.
that's like getting quiet with yourself, taking that time, being in that cave or being in the dark, this dark moment here where you have to be by yourself to figure it out. I think that's this truly like overarching theme that I feel here because
Mhm.
I hear it from you. I hear it, feel it in myself too, where it's like,
Mhm.
can't do it for others. We have to do it for ourselves.
Right. And I think that there is such a strong drive as women to please and
Mhm.
to fix. And
Yes.
I think for me too, I went through this period this year and I came out realizing like I really do want to write, but I'm not making any money at it right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, initially, my gut is like, ooh, that's selfish. That's
Mm-hmm.
not
Yeah.
doing something for others. That's not helping your family. And so it's like I go there right away. And that, that's a cultural thing. We were brought up to be independent women in a
Mm-hmm.
certain way, there was always that push for independence and to be um, monetarily stable. And
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I think that I feel very, very blessed that I am in a position that right now I don't have to make money. And there are some people who have to, and I don't take that for granted. However, it is it is interesting to be at this point where I am pursuing something that I know I am called to do, and I don't know right now what the outcome is going to be.
Mm. I
And I think,
resonate with that so much. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a risky place and it's a scary
Mm-hmm.
place and it's not stable.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And your body screams for that. Your body is like, wait, I want the stable. I want the comfortable. Like, what are you doing?
but
Now
at the same
protectors
time,
come in.
we're called,
Yes. Yes.
it's like
Yeah.
allowing yourself to get to the point where you can sit with that discomfort and pursue
Mhm.
anyways.
Yes. I mean, that's exactly where I was about 2 years ago when I quit my job too. I didn't know where I was going to go.
Mhm.
I knew creating a business, what my husband had said many times, like a business takes a good 3 years to start really truly making money and establishing yourself. And so he has been carrying us, financially while I'm building this business, while I'm pursuing what my true passion is, instead of listening to what everybody else says I should be doing. Well, you shouldn't do that. That's not going to make you money, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no, this I know I'm supposed to be doing.
And that was a big thing for you in staying in nursing too, right? It's like you
Absolutely.
were making the money.
I was making good money and I
Mhm.
carried our benefits and our insurance. And it was really hard to leave that because that was stable and comfortable and it was securing us financially.
Mhm.
And yeah, so it's hard to leave that and not know what the other side looks like and not know if you're going to make money on this other side. And while I'm making money, it's definitely not where I was. I know I'm going to get there someday, but I'm not
Mhm.
quite there yet. So, but it's trusting in that process and it's allowing yourself to take those risks even though they're scary and letting your body know because your body is like the biggest where it's like, don't do that. Our mind, actually, I should say, our overactive mind, where it's like, nope, this can go bad because of this way and this way and this way and this way. And it's like, you really just have to push that aside and say, it's okay. I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to do this for myself because this is what I need. And I think that truly tells our generations after us, our kids can see that and see that we're pursuing something that we truly want to do instead of what society told me I had to be or had to do. And so I think that's a really beautiful thing as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. I think that too, going off of that, the idea of like allowing something to be a lovely life experience that isn't necessarily tied to money too. And I think that there's a huge push in our generation too to like side hustle and
Yes.
but there are so many things that bring joy to life that don't have anything to do with money. And you could probably do this, what you're doing. And I guess that's what it comes down to, basically, is like deciding, would you keep doing this if you didn't make money, would you still do this? Eric and I talk about that a little bit with music, because it is really, there are parts of his job and that was one of those big questions that I had to ask myself for writing. It's like, even if I don't make any money at this, do I still want to do it? And the answer is yes.
That's a great question. It is a great question. And mine would be absolutely yes, 100% as well. Like
because there are other advantages, right? It's like you're making these feminine relationships. You are connecting people with a part of themselves, right? You are
and it almost fuels your
these
soul.
journeys.
Because when I do lead sessions, I feel so full afterwards, whether you've paid me or not. Like I feel so full. And yes, do I want to make money doing something I love? Absolutely. But I love doing it, whether it is bringing in money or not.
And that's what I realized about like growing food too, because I'm still so passionate about growing food. And I think that's what I came back to, is like, I'm not as passionate about flowers, but I love growing food, but I don't need to sell it. Like I can grow food and provide it for my family and have that mean just as much if I were making money off of it. And it's really lovely to see that realization.
It's great. Oh, this has been wonderful. It's been a great conversation.
We went all over the place.
We did. We went all over, but I love that. So thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. I gotta figure out. Oh, thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you loved listening as much as I loved recording. Each and every conversation that I have here on this podcast just lights my soul on fire. I love having conversations where we explore and challenge our ways of thinking. So if you've resonated with anything here and you're looking for more, please connect with me on Facebook in my Soul Deep community group, which is free. I'm also offering all my listeners a free month in my Soul Deep Connection membership. I have poured my heart and soul into this membership, bringing you resources to help you grow into the best and truest version of yourself. I've used my knowledge and experience as a nurse, combined with my knowledge and experience as a coach, breathwork facilitator, and somatic embodiment guide. This library consists of breathwork, kriyas, and other resources and modalities that will help you learn about and give you the healing tools to live the life you've been dreaming about, and to help you find your true passion and zest for life again. This library of resources is vital for everyday maintenance. And on top of the library of resources, there are live monthly calls, ranging from breathwork, kundalini, full moon or new moon circles, as well as guest speakers on a variety of different topics, from decluttering to marketing to sisterhood and all things healing and wellness. So make sure you join today. to get you back on track to living that thriving life that you are longing for. Remember, the first month is free, and my hope is that you find so much value that staying is an absolute no-brainer. It really is everything that I was looking for as I started my journey, and so much more. I truly hope to see you inside my community. And if you haven't yet, please follow me here and on social. Like and subscribe, and make sure to share your favorite episode with your friends and community. And when you do, make sure to tag me in that post. If you tag me, you'll be entered into a drawing for that month where you can win a free one-to-one session, breathwork or coaching session with me. All the links will be in the show notes here below. Until next time, Soul Deep fam, and in the words of my dear friend Mary Lacey Banks, I'm holding you so tight in a thought hug.